Hello, New York. I just got off a plane from San Francisco. It's nice to be here. And thank God I didn't fly into LaGuardia, because then I wouldn't see you. I would have been swallowed by the airport. But it's actually an honor to be here. I can't think of anything I would rather be doing tonight than to be participating in a reading with such amazing mentors and mentees. Truly, you guys are the real stars of the show tonight. But I thought I'd read a couple things, I guess. It's odd because we're in Scholastic and I'm going to read about the Hunger Games. But before I read about the Hunger Games, I'm going to tell you all about my UPS man. Are there any children in here? No? Okay, good. I live in the middle of nowhere, so I have active fantasies about everyone. It is what it is. And so I write about my fantasies. Mr. Rogers, Morgan Freeman, Channing Tatum. Thank you. Like, I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, I don't know about Channing. And I was like, I just disappear. And then some other people were like, he looks like a potato. But potatoes are delicious. So if he looks like a potato, yum, yum, give me some. Anyway, this is a little piece I wrote called Adventures with UPS Man. I have a very special, very intense, very secret, unrequited and ongoing relationship with the very attractive UPS man who brings me packages nearly every day. I love UPS man most during spring and summer when he wears his brown polyester shorts and he speeds up the hill toward my building, music blaring, often classic rock. When he steps out, his thigh muscles flex and I think, what can brown do for you? I have many answers to that question. Most of those answers involve horizontal surfaces. On a good day, the UPS man drops off the packages for the day and he pounds on my door or rings the bell to let me know a bounty awaits. His loud knock often startles me, but I'm pretty sure the force of his knock is his way of saying that he loves me. I run to the door and watch through the glass as he mounts his mighty brown steed, his truck, and drives away from me until the next time. Parting is sweet, sweet sorrow. If I'm feeling cute, I open the door, probably not wearing a bra. As UPS man lingers in the driveway, I lean down to get my packages and I grin. I do this to let him know all of this could be yours. There are times when the UPS man doesn't knock or ring the bell, so when I open the front door, there are surprises waiting. This is so charming. It's like UPS man wanted to brighten my day with a lovely surprise, and instead of flowers, he offers polyurethane envelopes and cardboard boxes, which is really nearly as romantic as flowers. Sometimes, UPS man is in a hurry, and he basically launches the packages at my front door as he runs by. This is exciting because I never know how the packages are going to be splayed. I study the patterns like leaves, trying to discern the messages, the future, the past, and the present through this passive aggression. When he does this, I wonder what he's like at angry sex. I bet he's really good at that. Bless. Yep. I have loved him for years. Sometimes I even document our love on Twitter. So here are just some of those tweets. March 2012. My UPS guy blasts his music in his sexy van and his sexy uniform, and he brings me things. I love him. In April 2012, Lord, y'all, the UPS man, hot, is training another UPS man, hotter, and they just came to bring me something. May 2012, Jesus. UPS man is A, looking spectacular, and B, rocking some serious eagles. And then later that month, I said, it is like UPS man gets hotter every day. Blessed summer for those little brown shorts. In July of the next year, between the mailman and the UPS man, I'm not sure who is saltier about the number of packages I get. Ha ha ha, UPS guy just launched some packages at my front door. I love him. The next month. Also, today, the UPS guy left the book packages about 5 feet from the front door. His animosity grows, but his thighs are amazing. Feel like things are getting extra tense with the hot UPS guy. I was getting in my car when he arrived this morning. He gave me a long, hard stare. So then I moved. So I don't know what he's up to, but he's still gorgeous. And very good at his job. Like, he just would run up the stairs, and I'd just be like, oh. So I wrote a book called Bad Feminist, and I should have probably, thank you. I probably should have thought a little bit more about the title. I wrote an essay called Bad Feminist, and then I was like, oh, let's call the book What We Hunger For. And my editor was like, too many words. And no, that's not really what she said, but Bad Feminist seemed a little catchier. And now everywhere I go, people are like, oh, hey, Bad Feminist. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I should have thought that through. But really, it's a book about what it means to be a woman in this world and to consume the popular culture that we're given. And so one of the key things that I think as women we need to do is find our voice, and we need to think about how we can express ourselves, and we need to be able to find stories that resonate for us for any number of reasons. And so I wrote an essay called What We Hunger For, and I'm going to read it for you today. I'm blind. I forgot my glasses. All too often, representations of a woman's strength overlook the cost of that strength, where it rises from, and how it is called upon when needed most. The Hunger Games, released in 2008, is the first book in a trilogy by Suzanne Collins. Catching Fire and Mockingjay, the next 2 books, were released in 2009 and 2010. The franchise was an instant success. More than 3 million copies of the book are in print. There are more than 20 foreign editions. The Hunger Games was on the New York Times bestseller list for 100 weeks. There are special editions, there is merchandise, there is a Katniss Barbie, which of course Katniss would absolutely hate. In March 2012, the movie was released and earned nearly $1 billion half worldwide. The series tells the story about a young woman, Katniss Everdeen, who doesn't know her own strength until she is confronted by her need for that strength. She is a tough young woman who is forced to become even stronger in circumstances that might otherwise break her. She is a young woman who has no choice but to fight for survival for herself, for her family, for her people. I have found myself inexplicably drawn to these books, the complex world Collins has created, and the people that she has placed within that world. I am not the kind of person who becomes so invested in a book or a movie or a TV show that my interest becomes a hobby or an intense obsession, one where I start to declare allegiances or otherwise demonstrate a serious level of commitment to something I had no hand in creating. Or, I didn't used to be that kind of person. Let me be clear, Team PETA. I cannot fathom how one could be on any other team. Gail? Oh, please, get out. Sorry, you don't exist to me, and we cannot be friends. I can barely acknowledge Gail. PETA, on the other hand, is everything. He frosts things, and he bakes bread, and he is unconditional and unwavering in his love. And also, he is very, very strong. He can throw a sack of flour, is what I'm saying. PETA is a place of solace and hope, and he is a good kisser. In December 2011, I know, I tried. No, I'm just kidding. I'm way too old for him. In December 2011, I didn't know much about the Hunger Games. Given my abiding interest in pop culture, I'm not sure how I missed the books. Then a friend suggested the Hunger Games would be a great book to teach in my novel writing class, and so I decided to check it out. I do most of my leisure reading at the gym. I hate exercise. Yes, it's good for you, and weight loss and whatever, but normally I work out and I simply want to die. I knew I was in love with the Hunger Games when I did not want to get off the treadmill. The book captivated me, and I wanted to stay in that world that Collins had created. More than that, the Hunger Games moved me. There was so much at stake, so much drama, and it was all so intriguing, so hypnotizing, so intense and dark. I particularly appreciated what the book got right about strength and endurance, suffering and survival. I found myself gasping and hissing and even bursting into tears more than once. I looked insane, but I did not care. I was completely without shame. After I finished The Hunger Games, I quickly devoured the next 2 books in the trilogy. My obsession at this point was raging and white hot. I was so invested I couldn't stop talking about the books. I daydreamed about Katniss, Peeta, and I suppose even Gale once in a while, as well as the other compelling characters, Cinna, Rue, Thresh, Haymitch, Finnick, Annie. I wanted the best for these characters, even when all seemed hopeless, even when all was hopeless. This obsession intensified well before I realized the first movie would be released. That development took things to a whole other level, as my man Tyrese would say. That's for you Fast and Furious fans. I started counting down to the movie well before opening day. I could hardly contain myself. I attended the midnight showing even though I had to teach the same morning. I warned my gentleman friend that he couldn't mock me for how I reacted during the movie because I knew I was going to get close to the rapture and I didn't want to be judged. I live in a small town, so I expected that there wouldn't be many people attending the midnight opening, but AMC screened The Hunger Games on all 10 screens, and every screening was sold out. My friends and I joked that we were probably some of the oldest people in the auditorium, so it was no small relief when we saw some silver-haired folk among us. As we waited, the teenagers and tweens chatted energetically about books and whatever else young people talk about these days. Nearly all of them were staring at electronic devices, and I thought, don't they have school tomorrow? I was not disappointed by the movie. I had feelings throughout. Had I been alone, I would have embarrassed myself with vulgar displays of enthusiasm. Oh, so vulgar. As a critic, I recognize the significant flaws. I do, but The Hunger Games is not a movie I am able to watch as a critic. The story simply means too much to me. I was struck consistently by the sheer brutality and yet the undeniable heart of the story, of the characters, of my dearest Peeta and his devotion to Katniss, and how toward the end, even when it seemed hopeless, they found their way to each other. The book's imperfections are easily forgiven because the best parts of the book are the truest, that sometimes the one you love best is the one who has always been right by your side, even when you didn't notice. I am fascinated by strength in women. People tend to think I'm strong, but I'm not, and yet. I identify with Katniss because throughout the trilogy, the people around her expect Katniss to be strong, and she does her best to meet those expectations, even when it costs her a great deal. I come from a loving, tight-knit, imperfect but great family. My parents have always been involved in my life, even when I pushed them away. I have wanted for little. One of my biggest weaknesses, one that has always shamed me, is that I have always been lonely. I've struggled to make friends because I can be socially awkward. I'm weird. We moved around a lot. I live in my head. So there was rarely any time for me to get to know a new place, let alone new people. Loneliness was the one familiar thing, making me this bottomless pit of need, open and gaping and desperate for anything to fill me up. I should not be this way, but I am. When I was in middle school, when I was young, but old enough to like a boy, young enough to have no clue what that meant, there was a boy who I thought was my boyfriend and who said he was my boyfriend, but who completely ignored me at school. It's a sad, silly story lots of girls know. It was fine because when we were together, he made me feel like he could fill my gaping void. He was terrible, but he was also charming and persuasive. I was nerdy and friendless, all lanky limbs and crazy hair, and he was beautiful and popular. I had no choice but to accept the state of affairs between us. When we were together, he would tell me what he wanted to do to me. He was not asking permission. I was not an unwilling participant. I was not a willing participant. I felt nothing one way or the other. I wanted him to love me. I wanted to make him happy. If doing things to me made him happy, I would let him do anything to my body. My body was nothing. It was just meat and bones around the void that he filled. It was, blind. Technically, we didn't have sex, but we did everything else. The more I gave, the more he took. I was dying, but I was happy. I was happy because he was happy, because if I gave enough, he might love me. As an adult, I don't understand how I allowed him to treat me like that. I don't understand how he could be so terrible. I do not understand how desperately I sacrificed myself. I was young. I was always a good girl. I was a straight-A student, top of my class. I did as I was told. I was polite to my elders. I was good to my brothers. I went to church. It was very easy to hide how very bad I was becoming from my family, from everyone. Being good is the best way to be bad. It never crossed my mind to say no, or that I should say no, or that I could say no. He started pressuring me to have sex. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes, and I did not want to say yes. I wanted to say no, but I could not, because then I would lose him and I would be nothing again. One day, we were riding our bikes in the woods. About a mile deep, there was an abandoned hunting cabin, often used by teenagers to do the things that teenagers do when they're hiding out in the woods. It was disgusting. So disgusting. Small, a dirt floor littered with empty beer cans and used condom wrappers and discarded cigarette packs. There was a small bench. The glass in the windows was broken, brown with age. Several of his friends from school were there. I did not know them well. I had mostly seen them in the halls. They were all popular, handsome. They would have no reason to know a girl like me, quiet, shy, awkward. I did not understand at first. I was very naive despite everything I thought I knew. Once I realized what was going to happen, I assumed that this boy just wanted me to blow his friends. I didn't want to do that, to share what I thought was private between this boy and me, but I would have. I could have, if only to make him happy. I told him I wanted us to leave, to continue on our bike ride. I did that. I did try to save myself. I did understand I was not safe. They were all so much bigger, and I finally felt something. I felt fear, but I didn't know how to say no. I tried to leave, to run out of that cabin, but they grabbed me just past the threshold. I screamed. I opened my mouth and screamed, and my voice echoed through the woods, and no one came for me. Not one person heard me. We were too far, too deep. I knew things back then, but I knew nothing about what a group of boys could do to kill a girl. I was a good girl who went to church. I had faith. I believed in God back then, so I prayed. I prayed for God to save me because I could not save me. I whispered Our Father because it was the only prayer I knew by heart. I begged God to change those boys' minds. He didn't. And then I did say no. I found my voice, and it did not matter, and I wasted my first love, my first everything, on a boy who thought so very little of me. They kept me there for hours. It was as bad as you might expect. The repercussions linger. I walked home alone, pushing my stupid bike, hating myself for thinking this boy loved me. I was a good girl, so that's what my parents saw when I came home, a completely different person, and went to my room and tried to pull myself together well enough to be the girl everyone knew. Just because you survive something does not mean that you are strong. In June 2011, Megan Cox Gurdon wrote in the Wall Street Journal about how young adult fiction has taken too dark a turn, has unnecessarily exposed young readers to complex, difficult situations before they are mature enough to make sense of those situations. She wrote, "If books show us the world, teen fiction can be like a funhouse of mirrors, constantly reflecting back hideously distorted portrayals of what life is." She is correct in noting that there is darkness in some young adult fiction, but she largely ignores the diversity of the genre and the countless titles that are not grounded in damage, brutality, or loss. More troubling, though, is the suggestion that somehow reality should be sanitized for teen readers. The critical response to Gurdon's article was swift and passionate from readers and writers alike. Sherman Alexie wrote, There are millions of teens who read because they are sad and lonely and enraged. They read because they live in an all too terrible world. They read because they believe, despite the callow protestations of certain adults, that books, especially dark and dangerous ones, will save them. I learned a long time ago that life introduces young people to situations they are in no way prepared for. Even good girls, lucky girls who want for nothing. Sometimes when you least expect it, you become a girl in the woods. You lose your name because another one is forced on you. You think you are alone until you find books about girls like you. Salvation is certainly among the reasons I read. Reading and writing have always pulled me out of the darkest experiences in my life. Stories have given me a place in which to lose myself. Stories have given me a place in which I can remember. They have allowed me to forget. They have allowed me to imagine different endings and better possible worlds. Perhaps I love the Hunger Games trilogy because the books were, in their own way, a fairy tale, and I am always, always in search of a fairy tale. As I read The Hunger Games, I thought of Gordon's article because I was struck more than once by the intensity of the traumas the characters were put through, the relentlessness of that trauma, and the visible effects. At times I thought, this is too much, but I know something of the world now, and there are rarely limits to suffering. In this trilogy, suffering has few limits and suffering has consequences that, all too often, we forget when narratives neatly imply that everything turns out okay, when narratives imply that it gets better without demonstrating what it takes to get better. In The Hunger Games, it takes everything. My love for these books, at its purest, is not really about PETA or anything silly and girly, though, Team PETA. I love that a young woman character is fierce and strong, but human in ways I find believable, relatable. Katniss is clearly a heroine, but she's a heroine with issues. She intrigues me because she never seems to know her own strength. She is not blandly insecure in the way girls are often forced to be in fiction. She is brave but flawed. She is a heroine, but she is also just a girl who loves two boys and can't choose which boy she loves more. She is not sure she is up to the task of leading a revolution, but she does her best even as she doubts herself. Katniss endures the unendurable. She is damaged and it shows. At times it might seem like her suffering is gratuitous, but life often presents unendurable circumstances that people manage to survive. Only the details differ. The Hunger Games trilogy is dark and brutal, but in the end, the books also offer hope. For a better world and a better people, and for one woman, a better life, a life she can share with a man who understands her strength and does not expect her to compromise that strength, a man who can hold her weak places and love her through the darkest of her memories. Of course I love The Hunger Games. The trilogy offers the tempered hope that everyone who survives something unendurable hungers for. Thank you.